What are the most important next steps that we need to take in mediumship and channeling research to create the greatest impact, to synergize our effects with each other? So I'm going to go to each of the panelists and have them answer this question. I will first start with Patrizio Tressoldi's answer. He can't be here today. It's a little late in Europe. So I'm going to go ahead and read the answer for Patrizio Tressoldi. So Patrizio says, for me, in order to enhance the quality and credibility of this research field, is mandatory to end to working independently and to move to multi-lab, multi-investigator studies. Even better if it's from different countries and cultural backgrounds, including USA, Europe, Asia, Latin America, and Africa, with projects based on common goals, research protocols, preferably pre-registered or as registered reports. The outputs of these collective projects, without doubts, will have better reproducibility, replicability, and generalizability of scientific standards. So here, I totally agree with Patricio's comments. Thank you, Patrizio. I'm going to ask Arnaud Delorme now to chime in with his thoughts on this.
Thank you, Helané. My thoughts on the topics is, I think one of the main barriers, and I don't think that's specific to mediumship research, is more on the nature of consciousness. So work on mediumship, with an angle of understanding the nature of human consciousness, because once we understand better the nature of human consciousness and how mind and matter are interrelated or not, then we'll can have more insight into mediumship, in terms of, okay, this is what consciousness is. Now, what can consciousness of this discarnate individual be in that context? So for me, it's like looking at the bigger picture of human consciousness and trying to orient mediumship studies to better understand that topic.
Thank you so much, Arnaud. Let's move now to Mateus, and then Alexander is next.
Okay. Well, since my main interest in mediumship research is children, I think that longitudinal researches are very important. Following the development of those children since their experiences start until they are adults or adolescents, to investigate the development of the child, the mental health issues. Several other features may be investigated during this path, and drawing from open science principles, multi-level and multi-method approach. That's also a good way to approach children, and then use more naturalistic, ethnographic, qualitative methods, and further mix those methods with the use of scales, self-report if it's possible. That's what occurs to me now.
Thank you, Mateus. How about Alexander? We'd love to hear from you on this topic.
Hi, thank you. Well, I think since we have seen a resurgence of interest in mediumistic studies, I think one very important aspect would be try to learn from previous efforts. Unfortunately, I think we don't know enough the methodological and theoretical insights that were developed by the most prominent researchers on mediumship since 19th century. So we had many of the brightest minds of the scientific world, the 19th century, early 20th century, fully devoted to investigate mediumship, discussing several different methodological insights and also theoretical insights. I think we should know better. We should revisit and learn from these pioneers. First, I think this is one point. And the second point Similar to what was previously said by the other colleagues, I think we need to use mixed methods studies, quantitative and qualitative studies. Of course, we need to have large studies, quantitative studies, well-controlled studies, of course, is very important. But at the same time, we need in-depth investigations of the some most qualified mediums, like William James used to say, the good specimen of the class. And I think we could have a partnership between these brightest mediums and also the best researchers from different backgrounds and different labs to try to figure out the best way, as I had said previously, to balance the controls and ecological validity and try to adapt our methods to the way the mediumship develops in some specific best mediums.
Thank you, Alexander. I would echo what everyone said so far, and to just highlight again this concept of multi-lab, multi-investigator efforts. You know, what if we chose one specific research question that we really wanted to go deeply into, and each lab either was replicating what the other lab was doing or taking one aspect of this and put intense focused effort into answering that research question? I think we would go a long way synergizing with each other to move our research forward. Along those lines, you know, at this point, it's so clear that these experiences are incredibly common. So regardless of the source, regardless of if it really is survival of consciousness, etc., these are experiences that people are having. It's very common. And how do we bring awareness around this to normalize it in some way? It's not a psychopathology. This is a subjective experience that people have, and for the most part, it has positive impact on people's lives. Along with that greater awareness, how do we then generate increased funding? Because a lot of the limits to doing more work in this field is the limit in funding to be able to support our work to move it forward. So I'm really impassioned about that, and working towards that in my own work, and also mirroring the comment about mixed methods and looking at it from different angles. So we have the physiological correlates, we have, you know, subjective reports, we have genetic analysis, and really having this mixed methods, multimodal approach to answering the research questions. The other thing that we, you know, didn't get into a whole lot today is also about just usefulness and applicability. And, you know, often money and consumerism drives our, you know, a lot of our cultures. Is there some practical use for this, you know, mediumship capacity that could then drive some of the funding or some of the research forward in terms of its practical utility? So those are my thoughts on that as well.